What's going on, everyone? Today we're going to talk about Skyrim's Dark Brotherhood questline, which is a fan favorite. When it comes to fulfilling contracts for the Dark Brotherhood, sometimes the player is sent to go meet the client, but most of the time these contracts are proctored by Nazir, making it so we don't actually find out who the client is. So our question for the next few videos I'm putting out is, who was the client for each of Nazir's Dark Brotherhood contracts? In other words, we are going to have ourselves an Elder Scrolls Whodunit. I chose this topic because it's a great way to celebrate Emil Pagliarulo's 20th anniversary at Bethesda. For those who don't know, Emil Pagliarulo was in charge of Skyrim's Dark Brotherhood questline. So congratulations to Emil for 20 terrific years at Bethesda, and I can't wait to see what he has in store for us in Starfield. Now let's try to unravel what secrets Emil may have hidden within this questline. Firstly, one question I sometimes get when I do mysteries is, how sure are you that there really is an answer? Which is a fair question. And the answer is, it varies from mystery to mystery. So for this one, I don't think that Bethesda left a huge elaborate trail of clues for us to follow for each contract like I think they did for the mother of Balgruuf's children. But I do think that they at least put some level of thought into who the client might have been for each one. And I think this because one of Nazir's contracts has a pretty obvious culprit. I won't spoil which one it is now, but I'll tell you when it comes up. So since this one contract has a pretty straightforward story behind it, I think it's likely that Bethesda at least put some level of thought into all of them. Because why do that for just one and not the others? So assuming that the devs at least thought about each contract, I conducted an investigation. I considered things like location, motive, and there's also these letters. Some characters send letters of reward if the player kills one of their enemies, which come with a reward of at least 50 gold. Here's an example of one of these letters of reward. Dragonborn, you may or may not realize this, but by taking care of NPC, you have indirectly helped me. Don't worry about how I know it was you, I won't be informing the authorities, but I would like to reward you for your efforts. Please visit me at your earliest convenience, signed Sender. In my opinion, letters of reward are evidence of the sender's innocence, because if the sender of a letter of reward had purchased the contract, then the player wouldn't have indirectly helped them, the player would have just been doing what they were hired to do. Also, why would the client give the assassin an additional 50 gold for a contract that they already paid for? I mean, who tips their assassin? Furthermore, sending a letter of reward would just ruin the discrepancy of the whole thing. So for those reasons, people that send these letters of reward for killing the targets probably are not the clients. There are also letters of thanks, which read as follows. Dragonborn, I know you killed NPC. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. In fact, I wanted to thank you. NPC will not be missed. Signed Sender. I don't think these are evidence one way or the other because cases can be made both ways. Clearly the sender wanted the victim dead, but on the other hand, why send the letter if it's their contract? Again, it ruins the discrepancy of hiring assassins to do it. Since both are fair lines of reasoning, I think it's a mistake to count letters of thanks one way or the other. So with all that in mind, who hired the Dark Brotherhood for each of Nazir's contracts? Let's start with Narfi, a lone beggar who lives in a ruined house in Ivarstead hoping that his lost sister will come home someday. My first guess is that someone may have wanted his land. Due to a housing shortage in Ivarstead, many residents actually live in the Villamere Inn. Perhaps one of them ordered the contract on Narfi so that they could build a new house over on his bank of the river. The obvious candidate would be Temba Widearm. She owns the mill yet doesn't have her own house, so maybe she wanted one. She's got lumber to build one with, but no land. Narfi's land would put her right across the river from her mill, and she certainly has the nerve to resort to killing to get what she wants. However, there's another suspect that I find more likely. I think that Wilhelm, the innkeeper, wanted to put Narfi out of his misery, but there may be more to it than that. In the miscellaneous quest, The Straw That Broke, the player must find Rada, Narfi's sister, who disappeared over a year ago. Wilhelm tells the player that he thinks Rada must have been killed in the wilderness on one of her forages. He says that he tried looking for her, but had no luck. The player finds Rada's skeleton in shallow water next to the bridge leading south out of Ivarstead, only a few feet from the shore. Two things things here are suspicious. It's an unlikely spot for someone to drown since it's shallow and close to the shore. Also, she is very easy to find, yet Wilhelm went looking for her and never found her? That's unlikely, especially considering that she was exactly where he thought she would be, between Ivarstead and the island in Lake Gear. So, perhaps Wilhelm had something to do with her death. He does have some shady side projects that he tries to keep under the radar. Perhaps Reda knew too much about Wilhelm's illegal dealings and he killed her to keep her quiet. He may have wanted Narfi dead for the same reason, or out of pity, or maybe both. So I'm accusing Wilhelm of being the client for this one. He and Temba both have potential motives, but I'm going with Wilhelm because his story just doesn't add up, which makes him more suspicious to me. Now let's talk about Beytild, the owner of Ironbreaker Mine in Dawnstar. Beytild and her husband Leigulf are separated and on very bad terms when this contract is given. In fact, they've resorted to running rival mining companies on opposite ends of town out of hatred for each other. This is one of the player's first contracts, so it could very well be that the simplest explanation is the right one. Maybe Leigulf ordered the contract out of hatred for his wife. However, I don't think so. There's another explanation that feels a bit more likely to me. Beytild is a tough boss, which is evident in her conversations with Karl. So I'm thinking that Karl ordered the contract on Beytild out of spite, and also because he wanted work to be less stressful. He probably figured that everyone would just assume it was Leigulf anyway, so there was nothing to fear. It's also quite possible that he got the other employees in on it too to help pay for the contract. So for this one, I think that Leigulf is a misdirect, and I accuse Karl of ordering the contract on Beytild. Time to move on to Anodius Papias, a former employee of Anga's mill that left and made himself a little camp just west of the mill because he suddenly got very paranoid for unknown reasons. He's terrified because for some reason he thinks that someone is out to get him, and he's right. But who wants him dead, and why? His only known tie is to Anga's mill, so that's our logical starting point. Codreer may send a letter of reward for the kill, so he's out. That leaves us with Aery and Leifer. I think that Aery is more likely because Leifer seems to dislike Codreer more than anyone else at the mill, so if he wants anyone dead, it would be Codreer. Also, there is reason to suspect Aery. She claims that her father left her the mill after dying in the Great War, but no one actually verifies that, so maybe it's a lie or there could be more to the story that Aery's holding out. A few things are suspicious about Anga's mill. First, who's Anga? That's clearly a woman's name, but it's not her, and it's not her father. Could it be her mother? Maybe Anga is her mom and the real heir to the mill. If that's the case, then where is Anga now? Well, I think I might know. Under the waterfall, just beyond Papias' camp, there's a hidden stash of a few somewhat valuable items, and there's also a skeleton, which I believe to be the remains of Aery's mother, Anga. If you venture here in-game, the skeleton may have actually slid out because of the water, so if you go looking for it for some reason and it's not here, you may want to check downstream. I think that Aery killed her mother to claim the mill for herself, then she hid the body back here with this stuff. And when Papias moved to his camp, she worried that he may discover the stash and the body, so she hired the Dark Brotherhood to kill him. Also, she mentions that her dad had some unsettled debts that she's still paying off. Maybe she wanted to get to the stash to sell some of the loot. Maybe it's stuff that her father needlessly bought which could explain the debts, or maybe the skeleton really is her father and these are like his spoils of war. Or maybe it's stuff Aery sells as part of a smuggling operation, which I suppose isn't mutually exclusive with the other ideas. A sawmill would be a pretty good business to use as a front for smuggling. Someone with a sawmill could hollow some of the lumber out to make room to put stuff in. Also, mills need shipping, so no one would ever ask any questions like, why are you sending these logs to this town, because it's self-explanatory. Sawmills send logs to places. And finally, the export gets used for building stuff, so no one would ever need to explain where the logs go to any guards or other authorities because it's just assumed that it was used. So yeah, Aery could very easily run a smuggling operation with the mill. As for why Papias is convinced that someone wants him dead, maybe he just had a bad dispute with Codreer. It could be that simple. However, I have another theory that also helps explain why Aery didn't try to kill Papias herself like she did whoever the skeleton is. Maybe Papias also fought in the Great War with Aery's father and he's struggling with trauma. He is an Imperial and looks like he could be old enough to have fought in the Great War. And being a veteran would explain why Aery didn't try to kill him. She wasn't sure she could take him. As for what specifically may have triggered this paranoia, maybe an Altmer just happens to come through the road and past the mill and it spooked him. Or maybe he actually did come across a group of Thalmor troops somewhere in Skyrim. But assuming I'm on the right track here, what would make the most sense is that he had some sort of encounter with the nearby gang of Altmer thieves known as the Somerset Shadows. Their headquarters is a short walk away from his camp, just out of sight. Perhaps Ennodius saw this crew of violent Altmer and it reignited his trauma from the Great War. Whatever happened to poor Ennodius, it seems to have really scared him. I also considered that maybe Papias killed whoever this person is and is really living here because he is guarding the body so no one will discover what he's done. I mean, fearing that he'll be caught for murder could also explain the paranoia. As for who it was and why he killed them, maybe he was actually the one running a smuggling operation and he had a partner and he got greedy and killed the partner. And it could still be either of Aery's parents. However, in this scenario, who would have ordered the kill on Papias? The only person I can think of is once again Aery. She may have wanted the stash and perhaps revenge for killing whoever this is. As for why she didn't just report the crime, maybe she didn't want to sully her parents' name by implicating them in the smuggling operation. I prefer the first theory I presented, but this particular contract is really puzzling. I'm confident that I'm focusing on the right clues, which are Aery's dialogue, Papias being paranoid, this mystery Anga person, the stash, and the skeleton. I'm just not sure how exactly all these pieces fit together. But every theory I come up with points to Aery as the culprit. Hence, I accuse Aery of hiring the Dark Brotherhood to kill Ennodius Papias. That concludes the first volume of Who Was the Client for each of Nazir's Dark Brotherhood contracts. I'll have the next two out pretty soon. Thank you for watching, please like, subscribe, comment, share, everything you do helps other Skyrim fans find this video, and it helps my channel grow. See you next time.